Well, good morning. We got a really nice cool morning here, even though it's May, end of May here. And kind of what I was wanting to talk to people about, we're getting a lot of questions about, they've heard me talk a little bit about thermals and different things like that, and how structure and all that will affect thermals and rising winds, or swirling winds and rising pressure. So what I want to explain is a little bit about what I look for. And you can see how right now it's early in the morning, it's cold. Your thermals typically in the morning will rise. And you can see how the wind powder here just it goes up. It may go a little bit, but then it eventually rises up. And this is what I was talking about a little bit about how there's some of those spots in the valleys that, we know are no zones to hunt, especially in the evenings, because your thermals fall and then they collect in the bottoms. And that's why the fog and all that, when you wake up in the morning, the fog is rising. Well, same thing with deer scent, or human scent with deer. And what I've got here is kind of pretending like this building and my house is kind of like two hillsides. Well, in the morning, with a little bit of wind, any kind of structure like this, like considering two hills or a third hill, the wind bounces off structure, and so you have to be aware. And I always typically carry something like this when I'm hanging stands, especially if it's got a little bit of wind that day, and I'll take note of what the wind does to the powder, so I can kind of understand how the wind will work in there. But what I'm getting at is, on a relatively calm day, you can hunt almost any type of situation or any stand if you're in a situation like that where you have to have the ability to hunt that bottom, because that's where that buck is coming through or crossing that creek ditch. It's a perfect rut funnel, but you may only get 3-4 hours in the morning to do that. And this right here proves how the scent, see how fast it just goes right up. Well, that's because of the rising thermals. Now if we do this in the evening again, I'm going to do that, it's going to go up, and then you're going to see it slowly start to fall. With a little bit of wind, if this was a cold morning but a little bit of wind to it, then your structure is going to affect how that does rise and where it goes to. It's still not going to fall, but it's going to rise. And it may, say you got a deer, you're expecting the deer to come off this hill over here, and the wind's kind of coming out of the south. Well, it's going to hit this hillside, swirl, and bounce off. It's going to ricochet. So then you got to be aware that, well, geez, that deer coming off this side still may get my wind. So you have to be aware of those kind of things and try to set your stand placement to where you know what direction you need to hunt that wind. I've literally had stands in the hills that I needed a north wind to hunt, thinking in my head, but really I could only hunt them like on an east wind or something like that, because of the way the wind direction worked, and it actually caused the wind to be in my favor, thinking it was out of the north. So just pay a little bit of attention to that. It's pretty simple, common sense type stuff, but one of these things really help out a lot. And you can see there it goes, and it'll start to, and like what I've noticed was, I get closer to the end of the buildings here, as soon as this gets out there, then it starts to curve like this, like there's a little bit of a thermal, a little bit of wind that direction. So it's just something to keep in mind. We'll try to get a little more detailed about this year, actually, when we're hunting deer and sitting in the stands. But we're trying to give you guys some content to think about this time of year as you're maybe scouting or getting ready to do some summer prep or food plots. Take all that stuff into consideration when you're setting your stands up. These are by no means fail-proof situations, but they're just little things that can give you an added edge, if you've got them in the back of your mind.